Welcome to the 6th episode of Meet the Curator. This series is brought to you by the Real Scientists Nano team. Our goal is to provide a platform where scientists can communicate their work and interact with the public. With that in mind, every week we introduce you to a scientist working in the field of materials and nanoscience, who would be curating the Real Sci_Nano Twitter account. Stay tuned to know more about this week's curator. Hello everyone. Today we have with us Svenja Lohmann, who is a PhD student at Uppsala University in Sweden at the Department of Physics and Astronomy. Hi Svenja, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
We are very, very happy to have you on this podcast. All right, could we start with you telling us about how did you end up in your current research field?
Yes, maybe. Okay, I've known for a super long while, I think that I wanted to go into science, but I always wanted to be, I think, a marine biologist.
Ooh,
that was my first goal. I mean, I grew up next to the sea, right? But well, then when I was maybe 14, 15, I had the chance to spend a week with some researchers in Sweetwater science something, and it was a lot of like looking at dead fish and very hands-on, which wasn't really my thing, I think. So I decided, okay, I'm not sure if I want to research living things, so I changed my focus to physics. No, honestly, I really was interested in looking at really fundamental things, like atomic physics was the coolest thing I did in school, I think. So yes, and then while doing my bachelor's and my master's, I looked into different fields. I looked a bit around. I found it really hard to find one thing that interests me more than anything else. So, but yeah, I think during the time I looked at, I definitely noticed that I wanted to do experiments. I did actually first thought I wanted to become a theoretician, but yeah, my bachelor thesis was in theoretical physics. But yeah, I started to like lab time. I liked to also work in a team on a more, how to say, medium-sized experimental setup. So yeah, like think not super big like CERN, but also not, just standing on your small setup by yourself, but really having a team effort on a big setup. And I kind of started to like working with accelerators, which is something I'm doing now as well. And yes, for my current position, I really looked for positions abroad because I thought I would like to have the experience of doing a PhD, not in my home country. So this is how I ended up in Sweden.
Okay. And your home country is?
I'm from Germany originally.
Well, that sounds super interesting. From marine biologist to becoming an accelerator physicist now. That's an interesting journey you have had. Having said that, how and where does your current research fall in the domain of materials or nanoscience?
So I'm in a field which is called ion beam analysis. So materials analysis using ion beams from accelerators. This is where the accelerator comes back in. Mm-hmm. So what I'm specifically doing is I'm not focusing on a specific material. So I'm not looking at the characteristics of one special material or class of material, but I'm looking more at fundamental interactions of ions with mostly electrons and materials, and which is something which is can hopefully used or still be used for analysis of materials, and especially of crystalline samples and of very thin films, think few nanometers thickness.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that sounds very exciting. So which was the last thin nanomaterial film that you analyzed?
Okay, I worked last on silicon samples, so both nanometers thin and crystals. and they had like, I don't know, 50 nanometer thickness roughly.
That is really tiny. Oh, that must be fascinating. Awesome. About the research projects, could you tell us about the research project you're most proud of and explain it to us in very, very simple words, like in other words?
Okay, so as I said, what I mentioned before, I last worked on the silicon crystals.
Mm-hmm.
And what is special about crystals when you're a physicist or a chemist, you know, that is that they are like ordered, right? They have a certain order. And with this order, we can force the ion basically on a specific path. So if we want the ion to travel through our crystal, we can, by using a crystal instead of a super random material, to travel on a certain path. So by doing this, we can also tell the ion basically, or tell how close the ion got to the atoms in the crystal. So we can select basically how close it gets to the atom while traveling through the material. And in this way, we can see that when the ion gets really close to an atom, that when they get close to each other, they can do something which is called charge exchange. And that basically means that they can exchange an electron in both directions. And this only works, obviously, if they get close enough to each other so that they can, so to say, reach each other. And this is a process which basically slows down the ion. It costs energy. So the energy the ion loses is different depending which path it takes. So depending on how close it gets to the atom, essentially. And we can measure this in this crystal for different crystal directions. We can basically measure the ions in the ant and see that they have different energies. Yes.
Okay. Svenja, do you teach? And if you teach, which courses would you like to mention?
Yes, I'm teaching. I'm teaching actually first semester students, so it's their first ever course they have at university in physics. And it's a bit of a broad introduction course to a lot of things. And yes, during this week, I'm actually going to, well, not so much talk myself, but listen to presentations of my students. And they have visited different researchers in the university, and they will tell about their experience and what they learned from this kind of short, more popular science introductions to different research done at the department. Yes.
We will see. We're looking forward to that. Okay, let's move a bit towards a bit away from the research and the sciences now. If you had 3 wishes to improve your research experience, what would you ask for? I'm not promising anything here, okay?
Yeah, don't expect that. I think my first wish would be better training in programming. I think programming is rather essential for data analysis or also other things as a scientist. And I think my physics education and from my experience, also other people's experience and bachelor and master level, is that there's not much programming formally taught or not with enough relation to physics and data analysis. And I think having this more focus on this in your education would really help or better prepare people for research they do later. Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what would your second wish be?
My second wish would actually be, it's kind of related to my first wish, more time in the lab and less time in front of my computer. I know I really enjoy lab time a lot. But of course, if you are in the lab, you generate a lot of data which needs to be analyzed. So I would say at the moment, what I'm doing, one day of lab time is probably at least a week of analysis. So, and I would love an ideal week. Well, there would be the other way around.
Okay, I personally definitely relate to that. Absolutely. And your third wish, what would that be?
My third wish is a more, well, maybe less scientific, or yeah, more related to my experience as a woman in physics. That I've experienced quite a bit of, how to say, sexist comments on conferences. So this would be also a wish that this won't happen anymore, basically.
Okay. Would you like to give us some examples if you're comfortable?
Yeah, well, my very first conference, we were sitting with a few people on a table, and me and the other female, I think PhD student or researcher, I'm not sure, we were denied a handshake by one of the male scientists who was there. We were denied a handshake. He was leaving and said goodbye and shook the hands of all the men and just left and basically nodded at us. That was really, really bad experience on my very first conference. Well, and then
I'm sorry.
yeah, and well,
when we meet in person, I hope I can give you a hug or shake your hand. It won't make up for what that person did, but
yeah, it's not a good feeling. And then other more like comments, like not me myself, but my other my female colleague, she was not introduced for a talk by her name, but it was just like, oh, we have another female speaker in our session, and neither her topic nor her name or anything what you usually give in an introduction was mentioned. It was just like, oh, we're proud to have so many female speakers, so we don't even mention their science and just their gender, which is
they're just reduced to their gender. Oh my God, that is awful. Awful.
Yes.
Awful.
This was fortunately addressed by a senior female scientist. She went up to the committee, to the conference committee, and said they should make him apologize, which happened. But it's not a good signal to young female researchers.
No. So listeners, if you're planning any conference or event or anything, make sure you're treating female scientists like you would a male scientist. Treat them as a scientist, not a female. Don't reduce them to their gender. And shake their hands if you're shaking everyone's hands. Come on. Oh, geez. Would you like to go on or should we stop?
No, I think that's fine.
That's fine. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you, Svenja, for sharing these awful experiences, horrible experiences. We appreciate that. And now going a bit towards the happier side, what are you most looking forward to in the next 3 months?
I'm very excited that I'm going to a conference in Japan in November.
Where in Japan? Where in Japan?
It's a small town called Matsue.
Okay.
I'm not sure either. I've never been to Japan, so it's a first for me as well. Yes, and I will give a talk there about my research and hopefully learn a lot. It's a very small conference, so more of a workshop.
Okay.
I think. So yes, hopefully very exciting, and we'll learn a lot and meet some people we collaborated with in the past. So we will hopefully get a bit further there in interpreting our results.
Nice. That sounds good. And after the conference?
Yes. Well, after the conference, I will have a bit of holidays in Japan. So then if I'm already there, kind of, yes.
Makes sense, yeah.
I'm definitely also looking forward on going home on Christmas. I haven't been at home. Even Germany is not that far from Sweden. I haven't been home all year, so
Time. That's a very long time. Okay,
yes.
you ought to come to Germany for Christmas. Yes, absolutely. All right, wonderful. Um, and before closing, which challenges or questions do you think the field of nano and material science is facing, or the field of science or research is facing in general?
Well, I'm thinking a lot about environmental impact of flying for conferences. So I think it would be better if we wouldn't rely so much on air traveling, but I still think it's important that we stay connected as an international scientific community. So I think we need to find solutions there, or find new ways in communicating more via Skype or things like that. Yes, and I mean, I'm working with accelerators, right? An accelerator, even the ones we have, which are maybe small compared to like big machines at CERN or something, they're still kind of an investment. So in my field, you notice a lot inequalities in science. You notice a lot that people you meet at conferences, or I don't know, groups where you get papers from are very, countries where they're from are rather selected. I think it's a really, you see here, okay, the research is done by people who do research in countries that have money, basically. And is one of the inequalities, I think, that is problematic, along with what I already mentioned, gender inequality, or, I mean, yes.
Okay, so diversity and inclusion on all
levels. Yes, on a lot of levels, from what is that, country to gender, or your ethnicity, or everything. It's still
missing.
It's still very noticeable. I think, especially at conferences, how little this is actually
implemented.
How little has happened also, I think.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I guess we are going in the right direction in the field of science and research, in terms of having wonderful young scientists like you who are aware about the climate change, about the effects of flying, and they notice the sexism and they call it out, they point it out. So I think we are going in the right direction, I would say. Slowly, steadily, I hope we are going towards a better, more equal and diverse and inclusive environment. Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you very much, Svenja. It was lovely to speak with you. And we look forward to your curation week.
Thank you very much. I look forward to it as well.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To know more about us, please visit our website, realscientistsnano.org, and follow us on Twitter @realsci_nano.